spells through Thursday. Looking at the bigger picture, high pressure still dominates the weather pattern. This front clears south over the next few hours. Then we're looking at a largely dry day as we head through the day on Thursday, thanks to that area of high pressure. Through the evening time, that rain just clearing the far south, and then skies turning starry for many of us as we head into the early hours. The risk of a few showers across northern Scotland, running down the east coast at times, but otherwise plenty of clear spells. Colder night across the north of the UK, less cold across the south, but temperatures generally hovering around the freezing mark, meaning there will be some patchy frost to start the day on Thursday. Showers across eastern areas on Thursday do push their way a little further westwards inland, but few and far between and on the light side, so many places staying dry. Best of the sunshine across western Scotland, Northern Ireland down into Wales, here unbroken at times. Temperatures overall generally around average for the time of year, but feeling less cold compared to the week so far across southern parts of England in particular. Through to the evening time on Thursday, still the risk of some showers across eastern coast, these making their way inland a little as we head into the early hours. Clearer skies developing across parts of Northern Ireland and Scotland, so widespread frost developing here. Some freezing fog patches too as temperatures fall below freezing. Across England and Wales, though, just hovering just above freezing, so perhaps a patchy frost to start Friday. Sunnier skies across Northern Ireland and Scotland, though some fog patches lingering for a time here. Sunny spells for England and Wales through the day. Most places holding on to the dry weather until later on, where we'll see a weather front just introducing clouds, stronger winds and some rain into the far northwest. Temperatures around average once more. Into the weekend, generally stays on the cloudy and dry side. Temperatures around average.
This year on GB News, we've got brand new members in the family.
Join us. Across the entire United Kingdom, we cover the issues that matter to you. GB News will always stay honest, balanced and fair. We want to hear whatever is on your mind.
And we don't talk down to you.
The establishment had their chance. Now we're here to represent you. Britain's watching.
Come join us on GB News, the People's Channel.
Britain's news channel. Join me, Nana Akue, Saturday and Sunday afternoons on GB News. Expect fiery debate and passionate discussion as me and my panel tackle some of the biggest topics hitting the headlines. It's a place for everyone's opinion. No one gets cancelled, but no one gets an easy ride.
Oh, she's on it today!
Be ready for conversations that are fierce, frank, and of course, fun. Every Saturday and Sunday afternoon from 4 p.m. on GB News, the People's Channel.
We are GB News, right across the nation. You can get us on television, on radio, on digital. We're absolutely everywhere.
Amazing! You see, amazing!
You remind me of me in the European Parliament. But here's the most important bit. We are not part of the mainstream establishment. We think and speak just like you do. We are the People's Channel.
Magnificent. That's really, really thoughtful.
Come and join us on GB News, the People's News Channel.
Join me every Sunday at 6 p.m. for Gloria Meets. In exclusive interviews, I'll be finding out who our politicians really are and what they really think.
It's something that you would never want anyone to suffer.
I didn't know what channels there were. I didn't think I'd be believed.
I must have weighed about 7 stone and I'm 5'8".
My instincts was to sort of cover this up. I mean, clearly that was a mistake.
Join me every Sunday at 6 p.m. on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Good evening. GB News' Mark White's been in Dover all day as hundreds once again cross the English Channel. And we're hearing plainclothes military on the beaches. So just how great do our security services think the threat might be? Levelling up, a big speech from Michael Gove. The West Midlands, not happy bunnies. I've got a Conservative and a Labour MP coming on the programme to tell us why they think they've got a pretty rotten deal. And joining me on Talking Pints, cult film celebrity, hardman hero, Tamer Hassan. I'll have to watch my step. But before all of that, let's get the news with Polly Middlehurst.
Nigel, thank you, and good evening to you. The top story on GB News tonight. Downing Street has said this afternoon the Prime Minister has never paid a penalty to the HMRC amid an investigation into the former Chancellor Nadhim Zahawi's tax affairs. Rishi Sunak has been defending how Number 10 is handling the situation, insisting due process is being followed and saying there were no issues raised when he appointed Zahawi to a ministerial role. Well, at a lively PMQs earlier on today, the Labour leader accused Mrs Sunak of being too weak to sack the party chairman. Sir Keir Starmer said an MP who sought to avoid paying tax was not fit to be Chancellor. Mr Sunak has suggested it would have been politically expedient, as he put it, to sack Mr Zahawi, but instead he awaited the findings of an investigation into the matter. Now, Ukraine's president has called the US announcement of sending 31 Abrams tanks to Ukraine an important step on the path to victory. Germany's already confirmed it will supply 14 Leopard 2 battle tanks to the war-torn country, as well as authorising their re-export from other countries. Russia has reacted, with the Kremlin putting out a statement describing the move as a blatant provocation, saying US tanks in Ukraine will burn like all the rest. Well, President Joe Biden spoke about continued support from Washington, saying that the US will train Ukrainian troops to use the vehicles as soon as possible.
The Abrams tanks are the most capable tanks in the world. They're also extremely complex to operate and maintain. So we're also giving Ukraine the parts and equipment necessary to effectively sustain these tanks on the battlefield. And we'll begin to train the Ukrainian troops on these issues of sustainment, logistics and maintenance as soon as possible.
Meanwhile, Boris Johnson has been wishing the Ukrainian president a happy birthday for today. In a tweet, the former Prime Minister said Volodymyr Zelensky's heroic leadership is an example to the whole world. Now here, hundreds of illegal migrants are attempting to cross the English Channel today. GB News can exclusively reveal already around 450 migrants have been intercepted, travelling on 9 small boats after a break in some bad weather we've been having. Several other small boats attempted to reach the Kent coast, but didn't make it into UK waters. A surge in small boat arrivals had been predicted as strong winds had died down before they picked up again this afternoon. And lastly, a 61-year-old man has been arrested on suspicion of assaulting the former Health Secretary Matt Hancock on the London Underground. British Transport Police saying they received a report that a man had been harassed at Westminster Tube Station yesterday morning. It's believed the MP wasn't hurt in the incident. The suspect remains in custody. Inquiries are ongoing. Those are the headlines. You're up to date on TV, online and DAB+ radio. You're with GB News, where now it's time for Farage.
Good evening. It was Prime Minister's Questions today. Understandably, the lawyer, Keir Starmer, was busy tying the PM up in knots over the tax affairs of Nadhim Zahawi, the Conservative Party chairman. He's still there in place. We'll hear much more about that story over the course of the next few weeks. The other big line that Keir Starmer chose to go on was law and order, or in particular, the failure of the parole board. And he focused on the man out on parole who committed that horrible murder in East London. But what he didn't say, and what many other MPs who raised the issue of children, migrant children, going missing in large numbers from hotels, what none of them want to talk about in the House of Commons, and no one did, was the other horrific crime that we learnt about yesterday, which of course was a young Afghan man who claimed to be 14 when he was actually 20, that committed a murder in Bournemouth last year and today was sentenced for life. No one seems to consider in Parliament that of all the children that are going missing from hotels, and by the way, 75% of them are deemed to be Albanian children, many of them probably aren't children at all. Later on this afternoon, there were marches in Parliament Square for refugees welcome. Well, you know what? This country has always welcomed genuine refugees, but many of us feel that what's happening in the English Channel is nothing to do with that. I can't think of an issue in which the House of Commons is more detached from the rest of the country. Well, all day in the freezing cold down in Dover. GB News' home and security editor Mark White has been there, and he's prepared this package for us. And it's a very interesting package because it talks about plain clothes military being on the beaches. So I want to ask you, just how much of a threat do you think some of these people may pose? Farage at gbnews.uk. Let's see what Mark White found out today.
Just before first light, the Border Force vessel Volunteer slipped into Dover Harbour. On board, around 100 people taken off 2 small migrant boats. During weeks of winter storms, there have been few in the way of weather windows where conditions are calm enough to allow small boats to cross. But the criminal gangs are patient, and after operating for the past 4 years, they're now expert at reading the wind and the tides. So on the few occasions the weather allows, the people smugglers launch their small boats en masse. By mid-morning, around 300 Channel migrants had been taken to Kent after they were picked up from half a dozen inflatables. The Prime Minister has vowed to make tackling the small boats crisis a top priority. The bad weather of late, meaning relatively low numbers arriving here, has certainly eased the pressure on the government. But as this latest surge shows, the moment weather conditions improve, the boats are back. As we filmed, military personnel left Dover Harbour in 2 rigid inflatables to patrol some of Kent's beaches, looking for any small boats that might have made it past the Border Force and Navy vessels out in the Channel. GB News has been told that other members of the military are now routinely patrolling some beaches on foot as well. Into the afternoon, the boats kept coming, just before the weather window closed again, with windy conditions now expected until the weekend. In just a matter of days, Border Force will once again take control of Channel migrant operations from the military, who've been coordinating these patrols since last April. But the pressure on the government is unlikely to ease just because the authorities are better at spotting and intercepting small boats. Stopping the trade in Channel migrants is the ultimate goal, but even the government admits that won't be a quick or simple job. Mark White, GB News, Dover.
Well, Mark White now joins me live from Dover Harbour. Mark, good evening.
Evening, Nigel.
Now, I followed this from the very start of the crisis. Your report tonight is the first time, Mark, I've heard of plainclothes military officers patrolling the beaches. I'd not heard that before. I'm sure no one had. Is this because of what happened at Aycliffe before Christmas, when somebody had come onto a beach and broke into a house and it caused a hell of a panic? Is that what they're fearful of?
I think there's certainly some concern that the way that the migrant boats coming across have been operating of late is a way in which, especially with Albanians on board, they don't want to fall into the hands of Border Force. They want to try to make it to the coastline. So increasingly they've been trying to do that, and we've been getting these very worrying reports of some boats, more so than ever really in recent months, that have been beaching, and then people, of course, wandering into local communities, desperate to get away, of course, knocking on people's doors, asking for rides, asking for use of the phone, and generally being really quite threatening and intimidating. So we've got, from what we understand from our sources who've seen these plainclothes personnel down on some of the beaches in Kent, are these patrols off that area. We saw rigid inflatable military vessels out there today as well, zipping along the coastline as well. As you know, Nigel, just within a matter of days, Border Force will be taking over command of the operations again in the English Channel. The military have been running it since April of last year, but it will revert to a new small boats operational command, still involving the military in a big way, as well as the National Crime Agency. The government says that this will be much more effective and efficient in dealing with the Channel small boats situation. But yes, it will be certainly probably more efficient at spotting them and trying to intercept and take them on board. Will it actually stop them taking to the water in the first place? Well, that, as I said in the report, there is a much longer and not so simple task to do.
I suspect that all that means, Mark, is we become a much more efficient taxi service for the criminal gangs who are making millions every week when it's calm out of this trade. In terms of security, this man that was convicted and sent to prison for life today, who claimed he was 14, he was actually 20. But the problem is, if people arrive, and as you and I have witnessed ourselves, throwing their iPhones and their documents into the channel, I mean, we literally surely do not know the identities of most of the young men that come in.
Yeah, there is a people smuggling industry that's underway where the criminal gangs in the first instance give that advice to those who want to come here to the UK, that if they want a successful asylum process, the best thing to do is just have a convincing backstory, and that will often mean really ditching who you are and where you've come from and a background that may not qualify for asylum, and reinventing one. And to do that, you throw all your documents away, you come up with a different name, you maybe come from a different part of the world, and it's so difficult, as you can imagine, for UK authorities to then get a handle on who they are. And of course the flip side of not knowing who they are is how dangerous they are. And we know, because authorities have told me, they suspect there are hundreds of asylum seekers who come into this country who are criminals, people with criminal records who've got through our asylum system. They're now in hotels around the country, because it only takes a fraction of the almost 46,000 who came across last year to have had a criminal record, and there you're up to hundreds, and that's what they believe. And when they're all, of course, Nigel, mixing about aimlessly in hotels with nothing to do of a day and an evening, then the propensity for some of them to get into trouble is always there. And if there are criminals amongst them, it's all the greater risk, of course.
Mark White, great reporting from Dover today, great exclusive, depressing story, but thank you for being with us right throughout the day here on GB News. Well, I have to say, as Mark says, you know, it's pretty clear we know hundreds, literally hundreds of criminals have come into the country last year across the Channel. Some estimates are that it'll be up to 80,000 that will cross this year. Now, Rishi Sunak is pledging he'll stop this. I'll tell you what, folks, all the while we stay part of the ECHR, all the while there is a European court, all the while our judges can use a European convention, in my view, we will never, ever solve this. In a minute, domestic politics, levelling up. You've heard lots and lots about it. In a moment, we talk to two MPs from the West Midlands who are less than pleased with the outcome.
Monday to Thursday, 9 p.m. till 11 p.m. Join me, Dan Wootton. I'll bring you the sharpest takes and hottest debates. Do you not believe in prison?
I don't believe in prison.
I'm completely stunned. I guarantee you there'll be no spin, no bias, no censorship.
I actually was personally quite offended by it.
And no reason to go to bed.
So I guess they've always been quite woke.
That's Dan Wootton tonight on TV, radio and online. Monday to Thursday from 9 p.m. till 11 p.m. on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Hello, I'm Michelle Dewberry, and you can join me every weekday 6 till 7 on Jubes and Kerr.
You're an inspiration to us all.
Clip that bit off.
Well, you are.
That's my ringtone. My political ambitions those days are gone, I can tell you.
She's only teasing. Go on.
He's probably going to want to lay down now. I'll give him 2 minutes to have one. Let's respectfully disagree. That's what we like on Jubes and Kerr. Come and join us. GB News, the People's Channel.
Michelle Dewberry, weekday evenings at 6 o'clock.
I'm Andrew Doyle. Join me at 7 o'clock every Sunday night for Free Speech Nation, the show where I tackle the week's biggest stories in politics and current affairs with the help of my two comedian panellists and a variety of special guests.
Free Speech Nation, Sunday nights from 7 on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
I'm Michael Portillo. Join me on GB News on a Sunday morning for topical discussion, debate, arts and culture, and sometimes even ethical dilemmas.
I don't always agree with you, Michael.
Michael Portillo, Sundays on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
He's the king of breakfast TV, and he's back. Eamon Holmes, back on the TV with me this morning.
Even remember my name.
I know, it's been 4 months. You have holy water by your bed?
Oh, yes. Already to bless.
Oh, Eamon. Oh.
Why do you not believe anything I say?
Eamon Holmes back on GB News Breakfast at 6 a.m.
This year on GB News, we've got brand new members in the family.
Join us. Across the entire United Kingdom, we cover the issues that matter to you. GB News will always stay honest, balanced and fair. We want to hear whatever is on your mind.
And we don't talk down to you.
The establishment had their chance. Now we're here to represent you. Britain's watching.
Come join us on GB News, the People's Channel,
Britain's news channel.
We are GB News, the People's Channel.
And right across the United Kingdom.
You can find us on Sky Channel 512.
Virgin Media Channel 604.
Freesat Channel 216.
Freeview Channel 236.
And YouView Channel 236.
You can also take us with you on DAB Plus Radio.
With the GB News app and at the website gbnews.uk.
We're absolutely everywhere.
Come join us on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Well, some of your thoughts on the security threat that is posed by tens of thousands of young men crossing the English Channel without documents. I think it speaks for itself. Ryan says, we are in huge danger as these men are entirely undocumented. Therefore, we have no idea of their past or even potential links to terror groups. Well, as we saw with the so-called 14-year-old who was 20, he'd committed a double murder in Serbia. He had been done for drug dealing in Italy and refused asylum in Norway. But he arrived in this country without any documents, and we said that's just fine. In fact, we even, believing his age, placed him with foster carers. It's difficult to make some of this stuff up. Another viewer says, well, Nigel, Brexit didn't work, so go to plan B. Whoever you are, you may remember, controversially, I unveiled a poster a week before the Brexit referendum, and it showed a snaking line of young men coming into the European Union. And the point I was making was, by not being part of the EU, we can stop them coming here. And yet, they have. And yet, they have. And that's why the Conservative government, I think, will lose the next election. And it's why so many of us that fought for Brexit are so disappointed about the way the government has enacted it. Hugo says, as long as people in power are afraid of the mob, then nothing will happen. Absolutely nothing. Well, I have to say, I mentioned earlier that I think Westminster, the debates that go on in the House of Commons are so out of touch with where most of the country is on this issue. Now, levelling up. We've talked about it before. Yes, I've done my very best to try and explain and understand what it really is. Well, today there was a convention of the North with, of course, the great Michael Gove taking the chair. And he seems frightfully pleased with levelling up and what it's going to deliver for people. He also adds to that he wants a lot more devolution, a lot more local mayors, a lot more local powers. My view on it has always been that, well, it can be useful. You know, you can build some roads and bypasses and some infrastructure, but generally, government spraying money around in regions, I don't think is the way to create wealth. I think you've got to do what, for example, the state of Georgia did in America. Over the last 10 years, they became ultra competitive. They finished up with growth rates of 4% year after year after year by good government, by allowing businesses to thrive. That, to me, is what levelling up would really be. But, nonetheless, as there is a cake to be delivered out under the government's levelling up plans, it's led to one heck of a row. And one of the places, one of the epicentres of this disagreement is the West Midlands. And Marco Longhi, the Member of Parliament for Dudley North, he put this point to the Prime Minister at PMQs today.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. While I was disappointed that Dudley did not make the final cut in the latest levelling up funding round, I am, of course, pleased that we received the £25 million Towns deal, the brand new Duncan Edwards leisure facility, and a transport interchange project secured since my election in 2019. But our high street, Mr. Speaker, is on its knees. So will the Prime Minister meet with me and Dudley Council to discuss our levelling up bid and how we can ensure success in the next round?
Well, Mr. Speaker, my honourable friend is a great advocate for his constituents. And I'm delighted that, thanks to his efforts, Dudley has received £25 million from the Towns Fund. I know there will be disappointment about the Levelling Up Fund, but all bids, including that made by Dudley Council, can receive feedback to strengthen their bid for future rounds of funding, and I would be very happy to meet him further to discuss.
Mark O'Longhi joins me, Conservative Member of Parliament for Dudley North. So, is it all about just governments, just spraying money around the place and all will be well?
Well, of course it's not, Nigel. It's nice to see you again, by the way. I am the ultra-local campaigner, as you might say. I will do my best for Dudley people, and what I want to do is make sure that I get every possible pound, shilling and pence spent, as any MP, you might argue, might want to do. I would always argue as a Conservative we want smaller government, not bigger government. Larger government usually means more taxes for people, so I would be very much against that, and more taxes means usually lower growth. Lower growth means recessions are more likely. So I'm very much for growth, low taxation, and I absolutely want to make sure that those infrastructure projects that are about levelling up actually take place in Dudley. And I was, of course, quite put out that Dudley was not considered acceptable.
Now, I mean, I've been to Dudley many, many times, and, you know, it's sort of post-industrial in many ways. It's really got its economic problems. Why was it left out?
Well, there are different narratives on this, obviously. We are being told that there are many, many competing bids in there, and if you listen to the government's narrative of, say, a week or two ago, it was all about making sure that it was money was being dished out on a per capita basis. While I can appreciate there is an argument for that, I would argue that particularly in areas like Dudley, where you have a post-industrial legacy, a lot of offshoring overseas of business, what happens then, of course, is that you have bigger problems in certain areas that need addressing than others. And, of course, different areas did receive larger sums of money than others.
I mean, one of the big criticisms, of course, is that levelling up, as it was sold at the last election, was all about the Midlands and the North, and actually the South is receiving quite a lot of money. Now, to be fair, the South has great wealth, but also pockets of great deprivation as well. Is this pork barrel politics? I mean, basically what they're doing. Let's be honest. What Rishi Sunak, and you got left out, but what Rishi Sunak is basically doing in the North is making sure the red wall areas get loads of money.
Well, obviously, there are other areas, red wall constituencies, who would argue that they haven't received the money that they were supposed to be receiving. So you will have heard also from Andy Street, who was also quite upset at the funding that the Midlands received.
Andy Street, the Mayor of the West Midlands, for those that don't know. Now, what he said was really interesting, because he's calling for even more devolution.
Yes.
He's calling for a level of fiscal autonomy for the West Midlands, which means just one thing to me: more tax.
There are, of course, different schools of thought on this. And what I would like to have seen in the bid considered more is the level of need that Dudley, for example, presents compared to others. And for me, if that local content had been there, I'd like to think that the government would have looked on Dudley more favourably. So that part of the question I understand. More devolution is something I need to be, let's say, more persuaded on.
Well,
because I remember the experiment with county councils, and that didn't work, did it? Andy has been an excellent mayor. We have a very good mayor in Ben Houchin, but I'm not sure you can cast your eye in the rest of the country and see that you have the same level of success.
Well, Michael Gove at the Convention of the North today was talking about these mayors being set up basically right across the country. I wonder, you know, this was supposed to be one of the flagship policies of the 2019 election, although I'm not sure it actually was, because I don't think anyone really understood what it meant, rather like the term Northern Powerhouse that went before it. But isn't the truth of it that in fact what the Conservative Party is in danger of doing with this is upsetting more people than it pleases?
We have had some bad luck, haven't we, as well? Levelling up largely means, in my opinion, when Boris explained, it was about creating those opportunities in areas that historically didn't have them. So he used to say, if you remember, talent is everywhere, but you're not able to actually
and
deploy that talent.
And he talked about free ports, and I think these were very good ideas.
Very good ideas. But a lot of it was centred around infrastructure projects. Now, of course, everything stopped for 2 years under COVID, and infrastructure projects take a long time to put in place. So even if we started today building on some of the things I want to get built in Dudley, it won't be for the next 2 or 3 years' time before we see results. Then you have planning permissions and all the other sorts of things that take time to sort out. So, to be fair, there is an element of the levelling up equation that you can't just at a snap of a finger make happen, can you?
Final thought. Rishi Sunak, your unelected leader, not even elected by Conservative Party members, but hey, there we are. It's 2023. We're all hoping for a fresh start and stability for the sake of the country, if nothing else. Pretty clear today at PMQs that Starmer was being the lawyer. Starmer was doing what he's good at. You know, asking a question to which he knew the answer already, and that's what he does.
And sticking to his script.
Well, yes, and the Prime Minister did actually point that out.
Yes.
But it's pretty clear. One thing that comes through is that when the Prime Minister said he was confident about the tax affairs of Nadeem Sahawi last week, he then says new evidence has come to light. He said it twice today in the chamber, which says to me that Zahawi has been less than forthcoming with information to his own party. I mean, this has been kicked into the long grass. You know, the new ethics advisor will look at this. It'll drag on for weeks. Do you think Zahawi can survive?
It's been a difficult issue for members of Parliament who like to show their loyalty, such as myself, to deal with. I'm not going to deny that. But the Labour Party, above all, were absolutely hounding the government when we didn't have an ethics advisor and saying, you must have one and appoint one immediately. And now it seems a little bit odd that they are saying that Zahawi should be sacked immediately, even before the ethics advisors even had a chance to look at the information. And so I don't want to jump to conclusions like the Labour Party has. It does seem to be a difficult situation, but... hey, I've been surprised an awful lot in the last few years. Let's see what happens.
Mark Alongi, thank you for joining me. Keep fighting for your constituents. That, after all, is what MPs are supposed to do.
Thank you.
And when a member of the Conservative Party tells you about the party chairman that it's a difficult situation, I think we know what that really means. We're going to stick with this whole issue of levelling up. We're going to stick with the West Midlands. We're going to go to Steve McCabe from Selly Oak, a Labour MP, and wonder, given that in his constituency there is the most deprived part of the whole of the West Midlands, why did his constituency miss out? Levelling up seems to be upsetting more people than it's pleasing.
I'm Simon Evans. Join me on GB News for Headliners at 11 p.m.
What's the scoop?
I'll be joined by two of the country's top comedians.
That's right.
As we take a look at tomorrow's newspapers tonight.
We're going to get into trouble.
If it's a big story, we'll be covering it.
Spill some tea on him.
There we go.
But we'll also have some fun.
I wouldn't stick up a bank.
My father didn't love me. So anyway.
Headliners every night from 11 on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Monday to Thursday on GB News, it's Bev Turner Today from 10 a.m. We're going to be here for you, our GB News family, to keep you up to date, but also make you smile.
The guy went from puberty to adultery.
And I can't wait to bring a few of my own opinions. I have no time for cultural totalitarianism. We'll engage in passionate, but always polite debate, with your thoughts and opinions at the centre of it all. Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
I'm Mark White. As GB News Home and Security Editor, I cover those key issues that are so important to you. Our authorities, our communities doing all they can to combat violent crime. With the public services under unbearable strain, why are we still failing to control our borders? Defence, the first priority of any government, has been continually hollowed out. Can we trust our politicians to protect the armed forces? Join me, Mark White, on GB News.
We are GB News, and we'd like to say thank you to each and every one of you for bringing us your conversations, for helping our great nation find its voice. We are here for you on radio, television, and online, across England, Scotland, Wales, and Northern Ireland.
It's not the BBC, you actually get your facts right.
We are proud to be GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
I'm Michael Portillo. Join me on GB News on a Sunday morning for topical discussion, debate, arts and culture, and sometimes even ethical dilemmas.
I don't always agree with you, Michael.
Michael Portillo, Sundays on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Hi, Andrew Pierce here. Join me every Friday lunchtime for a proper no-nonsense debrief of the week's events. With special guests in the studio and the GB News team on the ground, I'll be getting you up to date with news, some intelligent discussion, and my own sharp take. The weekend starts here with me every Friday lunchtime on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Every weekend, it's Mark Dolan Tonight. Bigger and better, starting at 8 p.m. Friday and Saturday.
Can't be too safe. Bring it on. Has there ever been a more innuendo feature?
And Sundays, we're on at 9.
It's ridiculous.
Just get on with it. Maybe you should get a proper job.
Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Steve McCabe is the Labour MP for Selly Oak, and I guess you're now a veteran MP. You've been there since you've been 97. Now, you've got within your constituency the most deprived area in Birmingham. So it's difficult to understand why you didn't get any levelling up money, isn't it?
It's absolutely difficult. I think it's the 6th most deprived area in the country on the sort of micro outputs. Yeah, well, I mean, you tell me. 19 million for the Prime Minister's very deprived constituency.
Is that in rural North Yorkshire?
Yeah. 45 million to build better roads from Dover. You can see why that's advantageous. So you tell me. I mean, I think I'm with the Mayor Andy Street. It's time we stopped this begging bowl culture and had some proper system for allocating cash.
OK, that's interesting, because, yeah, as you say, he's a Conservative mayor. He doesn't like this either. So if you stop a begging bowl culture, you stop the need for Westminster to keep feeding him money. You raise your own money locally. But how do you do that without putting taxes up for ordinary folk?
Well, of course, you don't raise it without having a national framework in which it operates.
Yeah.
I was at the Works and Pensions Committee this morning. I was told about 20 million that was spent on 49 different work programmes administered by 9 different government departments and departmental agencies. Think of the administrative cost and waste in that. So the idea that we recognise that the UK is composed of a series of microeconomies that could be better managed at a more local level doesn't strike me as that bizarre at all.
OK, now Andy Burnham, who's really become a very big figure, a bigger figure, actually, I think, as the Mayor of Greater Manchester.
Doing a great job, yeah.
That he was as an MP. And he's a big figure. Now, he's arguing at this convention for the North today that levelling up redistribution of money should be hardwired into the system, that we should somehow write into law that we give this money out. Would you agree with that?
Well, you have to remember the government started out with these 12 missions. Now, let's just go through those. One was to increase pay. Didn't do very well on that. One's to increase productivity. One's to narrow the lifespan between rich and poor areas, and one's to help younger people get their first mortgage. On all of those, they've failed miserably.
Well, they did have a Steve, there was a pandemic, to be fair to them. I mean, there was that wasn't an event.
No, this is in the 21 white. This isn't a white paper. So I mean, this is virtually post-pandemic. What Andy was arguing today was quite simply that we need better measures of what we're trying to achieve and the outcomes by which we judge that, and that unless you hardwire that into the system, unless you're clear that it's about microeconomies, connectivity between education, skills, training, health, welfare, longevity, all you've got is a slogan that disappoints some of the poorest parts of the country.
Oh, look, I think it's leading to great disappointment. I certainly agree with you with that. So, OK, I get it, Steve. It's a national framework, but far more fiscal, local autonomy. We're going to finish up with very divided England, aren't we?
Well, I'm not sure. It could be much more divided than it is at the present time. I mean, you go and speak to my constituents in Druids Heath and ask them about the 19 million Prime Minister's constituents have got. I don't actually buy that argument. I think that's an argument for retaining the most centralised and administratively costly system you could imagine.
Very interesting. Steve McCabe, thank you very much indeed. Another MP standing up for his constituents. That's what they're elected to do, and that's a very good thing. Now, quick thought on this, the What the Farage moment. You may have seen this story, but a trans woman in Scotland has been convicted of raping 2 women. Now, I'm not making any of this up. I'm really not making any of this up. And ahead of sentencing is being held in a female prison. And I make this point particularly because it is in Scotland, where, of course, Nicola Sturgeon's SNP have changed the law. You know, at 16 years old, without a medical consultation, you can just, define yourself to be a woman or to be a man. And there are many of us who think this may well pose a threat to females in all sorts of circumstances. This is an appalling case. It's ridiculous. I mean, you want to laugh, but you can't, because it's awful. Well, we've written to Nicola Sturgeon today because I'm taking this show, Farage at Large, to Aberdeen in a few weeks' time, and we'd love to talk to Nicola Sturgeon. Now, wouldn't that be fun? In a moment, it's Talking Pints. I'm going to be with Tamer Hassan. He is, of course, that cult film hero, hard man. I'm going to have to watch my step. Back with you in a couple of minutes.
Hello, I used to be John Cleese, and I'm going to be doing some shows for GB News for 2 reasons. 1, they asked me to, and 2, they want programming for viewers who are completely out of touch, a much neglected demographic. So stay out of touch with me.
Here on GB News Live, we'll be keeping you in the picture, finding out what's happening across the country and finding out why it matters to you. We'll have the facts fast with our team of reporters and specialist correspondents. Wherever it's happening, we'll be there from 12 noon on TV, radio and online. GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
I'm Andrew Doyle. Join me at 7 o'clock every Sunday night for Free Speech Nation, the show where I tackle the week's biggest stories in politics and current affairs with the help of my 2 comedian panellists and a variety of special guests.
Free Speech Nation, Sunday nights from 7 on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Join me, Patrick Christie's, Monday to Friday, 3 till 6. We tackle the day's news agenda like you've never seen before. It's high tempo, high octane, the most controversial topics, and the best guests. You will not be able to take your eyes and ears off it. I'm not afraid to ask the questions that you really want answered. 3 till 6 p.m, Monday to Friday on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Join me every Sunday at 6 p.m. for Gloria Meets. In exclusive interviews, I'll be finding out who our politicians really are and what they really think.
It's something that you would never want anyone to suffer.
I didn't know what channels there were. B, I didn't think I'd be believed.
I must have weighed about 7 stone and I'm 5'8".
My instincts was to sort of cover this up. I mean, clearly that was a mistake.
Join me every Sunday at 6 p.m. on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
We are GB News, right across the nation. You can get us on television, on radio, on digital. We're absolutely everywhere.
Amazing! You see, amazing!
You remind me of me in the European Parliament. But here's the most important bit. We are not part of the mainstream establishment. We think and speak just like you do. We are the People's Channel.
Magnificent. That's really, really thoughtful.
Come and join us on GB News, the People's News Channel.
Monday to Thursday, 9 p.m. till 11 p.m. Join me, Dan Wootton. I'll bring you the sharpest takes and hottest debates.
Do you not believe in prison? I don't believe in prison. I'm completely stunned.
I guarantee you there'll be no spin, no bias, no censorship.
I actually was personally quite offended by it.
And no reason to go to bed.
So I guess they've always been quite woke.
That's Dan Wootton tonight on TV, radio and online. Monday to Thursday from 9 p.m. till 11 p.m. on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
This year on GB News, we've got brand new members in the family.
Join us. Across the entire United Kingdom, we cover the issues that matter to you. GB News will always stay honest, balanced and fair. We want to hear whatever is on your mind.
And we don't talk down to you.
The establishment had their chance. Now we're here to represent you. Britain's watching.
Come join us on GB News, the People's Channel.
Britain's news channel.
It's that time of the day. It's my favourite time of the day, of course, because it's Talking Pints. Before I introduce my guest, let's have a look at him in one of the films that helped to make him mega famous. It was called The Business, just a few years ago.
Don't worry, son, you'll live. What's the matter? You're off, ain't you? It's just... I'm just... It's all right, don't worry about it. You ain't got to explain nothing to me. It's just that ain't a bit of me, child. I ain't one of yous. Yeah, look, come here. Yeah, take it. Anytime you want on holiday, you come and see me, all right? Don't worry about it. Don't worry about it. You just make sure you come and see me again. You'll be all right, you know that, don't you?
Well, here he is. Tamer Hassan joins me on Talking Pints.
Good
to see you. Really good. Now, South London boy.
Yep, through and through.
South London boy, not far off the old Kent Road and those sort of areas.
New Cross.
Del Boy just round the corner.
Yeah, Peckham, New Cross, Peckham, Old Kent Road. That was the places that I frequented.
Quite a tough place to grow up.
Very tough, especially being from an immigrant family.
So a bit of an outsider?
Bit of an outsider. There wasn't a lot of us there. I think it was the Irish, the Cypriots and the West Indians were there, and we had to do a lot of fighting and a lot of sticking up for ourselves. I was a very young, angry, short, little, fat Turkish kid with loads of hair. Still got the hair. And,
you have?
We used to do a lot of fighting. My mum put me into boxing and we just grew up the tough way, but I wouldn't have it any different. People say, I grew up in the flats, it was an hard time, and it was lovely. The community was beautiful, neighbours were beautiful. There's always good and bad everywhere, but I enjoyed.
And the boxing became a big thing with you?
Yeah, boxing became a big thing for me. I started at a very young age. My mum took me to judo. I couldn't get around judo, I just kept misbehaving, and then she gave me to, God rest his soul, an old family friend called Ginger May. It was very much like Rocky's trainer, he was an old school boxing trainer, so she took me to the church and I started boxing, and then back in the day when you're a boxer, people tend to leave you alone. And then, but you do so much fighting and sparring in the gym, you learn to go, do you know what, I'm all right, leave me alone. You just don't want to fight. So it was a good discipline for me.
And you got good at it?
I got good at it. I was undefeated as an amateur, and then I got some injuries and stuff, and I ended up owning a boxing club, Elton Boxing Club. I owned Greenwich Borough Football Club, and I say I own it, but I gave Elton Boxing Club a home with Elton Warriors in Eltham, and I still train. I've still got my stuff downstairs. I've got a Boxmaster, speedball, ropes, so I still do a little bit.
So was professional boxing...
Always wanted to be a professional boxer, but nose, injuries, hands. And do you know what? I'm happy I didn't turn pro, because the amateur game is one thing, but then to turn pro, it's a tough battle. It's a hard sport, a hard living. And I was happy that, there were some injuries and stuff, and they said, look, it's time for you to stop. And
how on earth do you go into acting from all this?
Yeah, there's a matter.
How did that happen?
Never wanted to be an actor. Never wanted to be an actor. Honestly, it was one of them ones, and now I think I'm 62 titles in.
Really? You're going to say?
Really
you're over 60 films.
Yeah. So never really wanted to be an actor. Kind of fell into it. Through investments and stuff, and people introduced me. I had nightclubs and restaurants, and I was always sort of charismatic and a good host, and I used to be very good looking as a youngster, it's sort of gone now, but I always used to host the restaurants and the clubs, but producers used to go, you should be an actor, you should be an actor. I'm like, it's hard enough earning money in what you know than what you don't know, and plus all the actors I knew, they was all skint. Everyone has this perception of us being...
Yeah, I mean, I was going to ask you about... I mean, obviously, you did all the famous soaps, the EastEnders, you did
I call it
that.
Apprenticeship work.
And the Bill you were in.
The
and
Bill, Casualty, Judge John Deed, EastEnders. I did that.
Casualty, isn't that the most depressing programme?
Yeah, it was horrible. And then I think I played a self-harmer in... I think it was Casualty on one of those shows, and it was just so depressing.
I just something it's on the television. I can't deal with that if I ruin my day. but people watch it.
What we do.
And then the big breaks, break. I mean, we just saw a little clip at the beginning there of The Business.
That was the big one. But I'll tell you what, where we are now, I did my first film along here, I think it's Blackfriars Road or something, in a school. It was called The Calcium Kid for Working Title. Great cast. It created a lot of stars, Ralph Spall, Michael Pena, Omid Jalili, Billy Piper, Orlando Bloom. And that was kind of my first film, and it was for Working Title, and I got that. And I had to work hard for it. Alex Durakoff, see something in me, and we did that. And then it just kind of catapulted from there. And then I did The Football Factory.
Which has become a complete cult film.
Crazy cult classic film. And us as actors, we don't know what they're going to become. We just go to work, and then all of a sudden they start roller coasting.
But in a sense, for you, The Football Factory, given that it's centred around a particular football club,
my club,
called Millwall,
yes,
what's the slogan? Everyone hates us, and
no
we
one
don't
likes
care.
us, we don't care. Yeah, we are Millwall, Super Millwall. But yeah, my club. But listen, I'm a great believer supporting your local club. I was born and bred in New Cross, 2 minutes away from the old Den, and you know, it was a bit of an honour. It was hard work. I mean, to portray a thug was. I think Nick got it right. Nick Love got it right. As an adaptation of a violent hooligan movie, it was spot on. And then it just kind of become like a cult classic because it's quite funny and caricature in places where a big thug like me is on a pitch with there's an iconic scene you probably remember with the kids playing, and then me and Frank Harper's character have these bits, this fight and this argument and stuff, and it just roller coasted into this huge cult classic movie. And it's still, they must show it on TV twice a week, once a fortnight, sorry.
Yeah.
And then Nick see the relationship between me and Danny, and he wrote The Business for us.
Danny Dart, yeah.
And it was probably my best experience, my best time. I had such an amazing time, me and Danny and Nick and everyone, and the whole cast was amazing. It down in Spain, we had 3 months down there, and we just did it. But I always thought there was something special about it, because Nick's special as a writer and a director, Nick Love as a director. But now I think that film is nearly 20 years old. And it just doesn't get old.
But somehow, through those couple of films...
I haven't changed. I know what you're going to say.
No, not a bit. He hasn't aged a day, honest. But suddenly you're famous.
Yes, it happened overnight. It really happened overnight, and it was quite funny. I met my agent, and she said, you know, you ever thought about acting? I'm like, you know, it's just a quote that I've regretted all my life. But I was like, oh, acting's a mug's game sort of thing. But then all of a sudden, I did Spivs with Ken Stott, Calcium Kid, Football Factory, Layer Cake, and then I did a Luke Besson movie with Morgan Freeman, Jet Li and Bob Hoskins. So I was just going and going and going, and all of a sudden, by the grace of God, I was very lucky. And there was no VOD, there was no, you know, Netflix and all of that. So it was cinema, DVD 3 months later, and plus the Pirates, if you could get a pirate. But then all of these films were in the cinema at once. And it was just, everyone's like, where did he come from? Like, he's big, he's powerful, he's great, we like what he's doing, he's believable. And then literally overnight, I couldn't walk the streets for a little while. Yeah. And then, you know, we did Dead Man Running, and then we did Layer Cake, and then we did Cass.
But because you're always playing the hard man, aren't you?
Well, I'm too ugly to play romantic lead. They're never going to give me the romantic lead. So I'm either going to be killing or being killed.
But when people see you on the street, they think, oh...
Well, they do. It's quite funny, you know, when you're driving along and somebody starts screaming and shouting at you, you turn around and look at them, they think, is he a real villain or is he from the movies? Yeah. And it kind of gets me out of trouble, so because I'm a lovely man in real life. It's just acting.
I mean, a lot of actors, even very good actors that have done amazing work, often get some quite lean periods, some fallow periods when the work doesn't come in. Are you one of these people that the jobs just keep coming?
Do you know what? For me, I think we cornered that. Before us, there was Bob Hoskins, Ray Winston, Kane, and they did their sort of Long Good Friday, Italian Job, Mona Lisa's, and then there was a gap, and then I think we filled a little gap there of great British cult movies, and then it dried up, and you're right, it does dry up, it dries up. I think a lot of that was down to, a lot of that was my fault, misbehaving, probably drinking too much, partying too much.
You're on the water tonight.
I'm on the water. I've been on the water for a little while now. But yeah, a little bit of was us misbehaving. And I said it before, it's a tough journey back. because I was there and it could have gone well. I'd spent a bit of time in Los Angeles. I didn't like it. It wasn't for me. I come back home and I wanted to honour the film industry here. But then it did dry up, and then you kind of think you're at a point where you think, I'm invincible, I'm unstoppable, I can do what I want, but you can't. And it's a tough business because the industry is very tough and you have to respect it and love it and honour it. Took me a little bit of time to get back, but now I'm back and I'm happy. I'm in my happy space.
And House Red is out now. The latest film. The
latest film, yeah. It's a lovely independent little horror film that we did. I was a producer on it, and a financer on it as well. A friend of mine, George, financed it as well. Camilla produced it. Natasha Henstridge. We was lucky enough to get Natasha. She stars with me in it. Clara Paget, myself. And it's a cool little horror film set in Tuscany. And it's quite bizarre, the story. I won't say too much.
No, don't.
And when you look at it, there was something going on about
I tell you what.
Wine being made.
I tell you what. I'm going to watch it at the weekend.
It's on. It's Sky Cinema, Amazon Prime, and it's all over the major networks in America.
What can I say, Tamer? Thank you very much for coming
so
on,
much.
joining us, and hey,
pleasure. Anytime.
Well done, you.
Well done.
You've had a great career.
Had a good one. Long may it last. That was lovely. I enjoyed it.
We've got a couple of minutes left. It's time for Barrage the Farage. Oh, here we go. So I never know what I'm going to get, I promise you. This one. If Trump becomes president in 2024, do you think the Ukraine war will be over the next day? I tell you what, Grant, if Trump had been in the White House, Putin would not have invaded Ukraine. I thoroughly believe that. It was the withdrawal from Afghanistan that Biden did, leading, of course, to the Taliban, who he'd fought for 20 years, taking it over. What Putin saw was Western weakness. Now, I can't promise you, if Trump gets back, it'll all be over the next day. But I tell you what, if Putin feared the American president, and sometimes in the world, a little bit of fear is not a bad thing. Julian asks, Nigel, do you think that unless we leave the European Convention on Human Rights, illegal immigration will continue no matter what the Tories promise? All the while we've got foreign judges having a say over our country, all the while we've got our judges using European law, we'll never, ever deal with the problem. And we must deal with the problem. This country's always been very open. We want good people to come to Britain. We don't want bad dudes crossing the English Channel and pretending to be someone different to what they are. And finally, Matt asks, what do you think of the government's proposals to raise the pension age to 68? Matt, we cannot, and I'm sorry, some of you will hate this, but we cannot go on getting old age pensions in our mid-60s if our life expectancy is going into the 80s. We just can't do it. And at some point, that pension age is going to need to creep up. It was designed at a time when people live much, much shorter lives. Now, tomorrow night, I'm doing a live show from Crawley. Please don't go online and try and get a ticket. We are full. In fact, we're over full. And we've got a special guest joining us tomorrow night. Here she is. She's called Katie Price.
Hi everyone, I just thought I'd let you know I am back again on GB News tomorrow night at 7 p.m. Make sure you tune in. This time I've got Nigel Farage interviewing me. Oh my God, Nigel, you better be nice to me. You better be nice to me. Anyway, get tuned in and see what the Price has got to say.
Katie, of course I'll be nice to you. Don't worry, I'm sure the audience will be nice to you too. Crawley, tomorrow night, live audience with me, Nigel Farage at 7 p.m. Over and out for now. Laurence Fox now takes over.
Thank you, Nigel, and good evening, everybody. Tonight we're talking excess deaths, crooked coppers, and the coronation of King Charles the Woke. But first, the weather.
Hello there, I'm Greg Dewhurst and welcome to your latest broadcast. Rain quickly clearing southern areas for the next few hours, and then we've got a patchy frost developing tonight, but that will lead to plenty of sunny spells through Thursday. Looking at the bigger picture, high pressure still dominates the weather pattern. This front clears south over the next few hours. Then we're looking at a largely dry day as we head through the day on Thursday, thanks to that area of high pressure. Through the evening time, that rain just clearing the far south, and then skies turning starry for many of us as we head into the early hours. The risk of a few showers across northern Scotland, running down the east coast at times, but otherwise plenty of clear spells. Colder night across the north of the UK, less cold across the south, but temperatures generally hovering around the freezing mark, meaning there will be some patchy frost to start the day on Thursday. Showers across eastern areas on Thursday do push their way a little further westwards inland, but few and far between and on the light side, so many places staying dry. Best of the sunshine across western Scotland, Northern Ireland down into Wales, here unbroken at times. Temperatures overall generally around average for the time of year, but feeling less cold compared to the week so far across southern parts of England in particular. Through into the evening time on Thursday, still the risk of some showers across eastern coast, these making their way inland a little as we head into the early hours. Clearer skies developing across parts of Northern Ireland and Scotland, so widespread frost developing here. Some freezing fog patches too as temperatures fall below freezing. Across England and Wales, though, just hovering just above freezing, so perhaps a patchy frost to start Friday. Sunnier skies across Northern Ireland and Scotland, though some fog patches lingering for a time here. Sunny spells for England and Wales through the day. Most places holding on to the dry weather until later on, where we'll see a weather front just introducing clouds, stronger winds and some rain into the far northwest. Temperatures around average once more. Into the weekend, generally stays on the cloudy and dry side. Temperatures around average.
We are GB News, the People's Channel.
And right across the United Kingdom.
You can find us on Sky Channel 512,
Virgin Media Channel 604,
Freesat Channel 216.
Freeview Channel 236.
And YouView Channel 236.
You can also take us with you on DAB Plus Radio.
With the GB News app and at the website gbnews.uk.
We're absolutely everywhere.
Come join us on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Join me, Nana Akue, Saturday and Sunday afternoons on GB News. Expect fiery debate and passionate discussion as me and my panel tackle some of the biggest topics hitting the headlines. It's a place for everyone's opinion. No one gets cancelled, but no one gets an easy ride.
Oh, she's on it today!
Be ready for conversations that are fierce, frank, and of course, fun. Every Saturday and Sunday afternoon from 4 p.m. on GB News, the People's Channel.
Join my show Farage, 7 p.m. till 8 p.m. Monday through Thursday, and there you will get opinion, analysis, debate, and I'll cover stories that nobody else dares to touch. You've been cancelled. Join the club.
Oh my goodness me.
And then for the last 15 minutes, talking pints. We're over a drink. We have a civilised conversation with someone. We very often disagree, but we do it in a grown-up way. Come and join me on Farage.
Hello there, it's Eamon Holmes here from Breakfast on GB News. We're not just on your television and your screens, you know.
We're on DAB Plus digital radio, so you can listen to your favourite shows on the move.
If you've not yet listened to GB News Radio, it's very simple. We're on your radio player and TuneIn apps, on your smart speaker, phone or tablet, or online at gbnews.uk.